Hi, this is Nikki, and you're watching Unfiltered, my journey on the GLP-1 drug Zepbound. I'm just finishing week 4 on my starter dose, and if you're just joining me, I am a fitness fan and foodie who decided that I wanted to record this just to share my journey because I have the last 17 pounds that I just have not been able to budge on the scale. And I had great results the first week. I dropped about 6 pounds and then have just been stuck. The scale plateaued, and no matter what I do, it won't move. I got great feedback from you all in the last week that said, eat more regularly, eat more protein, be more mindful about solid food consumption. All things that were really, really helpful. And the key really was the mindfulness, and I'll get back to that a little bit more. But this week was kind of a real test for me because I am a self-proclaimed foodie. I love food. My husband and I travel the world. I write about food. I talk about food. I take pictures of food. And we both really enjoy cooking. And whether it's Michelin star restaurants or food carts, we love everything about food. And so that was my biggest reluctance and hesitation going on this journey because I've heard all the stories about people just the palate and the food not tasting so good anymore and all of those things, right? So I was really nervous about that. So we went to Paso for a couple of days of wine tasting, the Paso Robles, the wine country here on the central coast of California. And I'll share a little bit more about that as well. But the first thing I want to say is that, as I mentioned already, the scale has been stuck. I have been plateaued at about 137 pounds. So I started at about 142, 143, plateaued at 137 actually. I want to get to 125. Like that's my goal weight is 125. So as we all know, those last 15 pounds, 12 to 15 pounds are the hardest to lose. And a lot of you also made comments about that. And for those of you who made comments about the fact that I don't look overweight, thank you. I really appreciate that. The reality is that we know how we want to feel and look, right? It's not about what the viewer sees or what the other people see about us. Like I know what weight and what shape makes me feel invincible and makes me feel really good about myself. And I'm just not there. I would consider myself to be a skinny fat person, basically. So outwardly, I look, thin, if you will, healthy. I am healthy physically. However, you would never catch me wearing a bikini. Let's just put it that way. And I know that sounds really shallow, and it's just something that I feel like is an important marker for me. Like I want to be confident in a bikini. So I did something different. I had obviously taken measurements when I first started, and I hadn't checked my measurements for this last 1 month because obviously inches don't move as frequently as pounds, let's just say. So I measured this morning, which is day 30 at this point. And lo and behold, I'm down across the board about a ½ inch, which doesn't sound like a lot. But my husband has been mentioning too that he feels like I look a little bit thinner. And I've just been brushing it aside, like, well, the scale's not moving, so, I don't think I am. I don't think anything's different. And I haven't really been paying attention to my clothes as much. But now, of course, with this like ½ inch, I mean, that's a pretty significant movement, I think, especially when you don't have a lot to lose. Like I'm talking about wanting to lose maybe a couple of inches across the board. So I'm sort of like quarter of the way there, maybe. So anyway, so the scale is lying, but the measurements are telling me a different story. And so that has sort of changed my outlook a little bit. It's given me a little bit more hope. I think if you watched my last couple of videos, you realize you could see that I was frustrated about the scale not moving. Of course, I also realized that part of that was because I wasn't eating nearly enough calories. I wasn't consuming nearly enough calories. So I've been super mindful about that as well. And that's kind of what I want to talk about is the mindset, actually. But before I do, let me just dive into going to Paso Robles for wine tasting and food weekend, right? A dining weekend. So I was really nervous because this, to me, is the true test. Was I going to enjoy the food the same way? Was my husband and I going to be able to talk about food the way we normally do? Or, has my palate changed? Because there was an instance a couple of weeks ago where I really did think that, oh my goodness, this food is tasting so salty. And my husband didn't think that way. So I was kind of nervous about this. But I have to say that it was fine. Like, it was great, actually. Because what ended up happening is we went wine tasting to 3 wineries in one day, and we had them spaced out, like 3 hours apart. And the sample sizes, of course, the tasting sizes are small, so that was perfect. I was able to keep pace. I think there was only one winery where there was a very robust, very full-bodied Syrah that was absolutely delicious. It was my husband's favorite, and I didn't finish that. I just felt full, which was kind of interesting. But aside from that, I was able to keep pace and enjoy and savor the flavors and, the textures of the wine. Really, I was thrilled, really thrilled. And of course, the true mark came when we went to dinner and when we had our meals. I enjoyed them. I really did. I mean, I ate a lot less. So I'm kind of excited about this because what I'm realizing is that, it always is quality over quantity. It's always savoring versus just consuming. But this was something that I have struggled with my whole life, if I'm to be honest. I remember, almost 20 years ago when I would go to parties when I was a lot younger, and we'd go to parties and I would sort of like hang out at the food table and gorge myself till I was like sick in the stomach. Like I couldn't go to a party without being like miserable at the end of it when we would leave, just because I was bloated and overfull and my stomach felt terrible. And I just couldn't break that habit. I mean, since then, of course, I haven't been like that. But even so, if I'm eating something that I really enjoy, I would say that I've had the realization now in this last 1 month that I had less willpower to curb the portion. So even though I was thinking that I was eating smaller portions, comparing the portions I was eating to the portions I am eating, it's actually a marked difference. And that's the key. Like I would go away on a weekend like what we just did, and I would come home, obviously, a few pounds heavier. This trip, I didn't come back. I mean, the scale was plateaued, but at least I didn't add any weight. And I actually measured myself at the end of this trip, which was remarkable that the inches were down half pound across the board. Where I was down half an inch across the board. So the mindset piece, the willpower, I feel like is the thing that this medication is most helping me master. We ate some mediocre food, as sometimes happens, but I think the best meal we had, incidentally, was the chilaquiles, the birria chilaquiles that we had in this little restaurant on our way out of town called Agape. If you're ever in Paso Robles, definitely stop by there. It seems like a family-run place. It's just very cozy, like you feel like you're in someone's extended dining room. And the food was just incredible. And the portions were huge. Like you could see on Yelp and everything, like the pictures, the portions were really big. So we ordered 1 plate of the birria chilaquiles, and I just ordered 2 eggs for myself. And then I took, I think 3 or 4 bites from the chilaquiles that came out and my eggs, and that was satisfying, deeply satisfying. And I didn't walk away from the table feeling, overloaded or full or bloated or any of those things that probably would have happened historically when there was something that good. It's really easy to walk away from the table when you're not really enjoying the meal, which certainly we had a couple of meals that were hit or miss. And it was not a challenge to say, I don't really need to eat that anymore. But when something is really, really tasty, when every morsel like really makes your palate sing and the textures and the flavors are kind of perfectly married together, it's really, really hard to walk away from that, right? Like just one more bite and one more bite. And I didn't do that. And I'm kind of really pleased and gratified because I think that in hindsight now is like the biggest thing that I'm supposed to learn on this journey is, even though I was eating in moderation and I thought I was eating small portions, I think we have a distorted reality of what small portions are, because in the United States, most of the meals that we are served up at a restaurant are quite large. And then, if you go to Europe or you go to other countries, you tend to get much smaller portions, to the point where we as an American think like, oh my God, that's a very small portion of food for a lot of money. But I think it's because we just get served up large portions. And so if you're getting a large portion and you're eating a little bit of that, you think you're doing well with portion control. But in actual fact, you don't even need that much. You need even less. So it's almost like that Goldilocks moment of, right, like what's the right amount of food that we're supposed to eat? And can we pause? It is said that it takes 20 minutes for the brain to send a signal to your stomach that you're full. But we eat so fast, right? Because in our culture, we don't wait and savor and extend time over the meal. We eat pretty fast. So there's no time to wait for that brain-stomach connection to be made to say, hey, like you were full 20 minutes ago and now you're like dangerously overfull. So it's been a pretty major aha weekend for me as I'm stepping into week 5. I took I started on the 5 milligram dose yesterday, and we'll see. I'm wondering if there's going to be a little bit more appetite suppression, something I have to be mindful of. I also want to report back that I was way better at my solid meals. And it's kind of crazy to say solid meals as if I'm a baby, but like really because I was relying so much on protein shakes, and not consuming enough physical calories, that I feel like I'm just trying to be more mindful about that. So that's been really, really helpful. I can't say that I'm 100% there. And I can't say that I ate every 2 hours like I had said I was going to either, but I've definitely been eating more. I'm at least eating 3 proper meals a day, and I'm trying to intersperse a couple of healthy snacks like fruit or yogurt or granola and things like that. And so that's where we are. You're watching my unfiltered journey, and I'm really so grateful for all of your comments over the last few weeks. Please keep those coming. And if you're on this journey, I'd love to hear from you. What are you experiencing? Have you had this feeling of, quantity versus quality, and appetite suppression versus like your palate changing, which really was one of my greatest fears as I started this. It was like, was the taste of food going to change for me? Because as a self-proclaimed foodie, like I said, I love flavors, textures, cultures. I love trying different things, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose that. So I'm happy to report so far so good. Again, you're watching Unfiltered, and I hope to see you again next Sunday. Thanks so much for watching.